Welcome to It's All Geek to Me, a podcast where two friends experience popular nerdy franchises for the first time. My name is Leah, and this season my co-host Kelli and I will be traveling to a galaxy far, far away as Kelli experiences Star Wars for the very first time. And I'm the expert. Let's dive in.
And we're back with part 2 of episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And things are getting exciting, although we did have one very, very long scene that I just had no notes for, but I'll tell you about it when we get there.
Could it be the pod racing scene?
It might be. We don't know for sure.
Yeah, I just sat back and enjoyed that scene. I took like a few notes here and there, but you know.
I just figured the details of like, oh, someone slams into someone, their jet engine falls off. I just didn't think that was going to be very important to the whole story.
It's not actually.
Oh,
so.
Wow. That was a good prediction on my part.
Yeah, you're so smart.
I know.
So pick us up. Where did we start? What was the first scene?
We actually start by eating dinner with the Skywalkers. That's their last name, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's a Skywalker. I don't know his mom's name. She must have a name, but I don't know it.
She is not important to the story.
She's Mommy Skywalker.
Mommy Skywalker. So Mommy Skywalker is telling them that each slave actually has a transmitter in their body, and Anakin is talking about how he's working on a machine to locate his. So I thought that was kind of funky. Do they put it in a different spot on each slave?
I guess they must, or maybe it's like microscopic. I don't know.
Ooh, yeah. Good point. Oh, by the way, one thing I did notice, well, I noticed it in the last section, but I did not mention it in our previous episode, but Jar Jar Binks keeps on saying, how rude, and it is infuriating.
Yeah. That's my least favorite Jar Jar Binks thing that he says, because that's Michelle Tanner from Full House. I'm probably aging myself, but
I was actually going to say which came first, Full House or that?
Oh, definitely Full House.
Okay.
It has to be.
I just assumed that Michelle Tanner is quoting Jar Jar Binks, but I don't like how much he says it. I think once or twice, kind of funny. 5 or 6 times, less funny.
Oh my goodness. Full House came out in 1987.
Wow.
And The Phantom Menace came out in 99.
Is Jar Jar Binks referencing Full House?
Jar Jar Binks must be a huge Full House fan. That's all I can guess.
Big Mary-Kate and Ashley fan, which honestly, same. So I get it.
I guess that like it was obvious that Full House came out first because Mary-Kate and Ashley were literal infants.
Babies, yeah.
Yeah, when Full House came out.
What the
Wow.
heck? Oh my gosh. Well, I hate it.
Yeah, so it bothered me too because I was like, this is already some sort of thing that a character in TV does, so why is Jar Jar Binks also doing it?
No, it's too much. It's very annoying. So then we've got Padme, and she's talking to Mommy Skywalker, and she's pretty upset about the slavery, and she's like, this is not a thing in the Republic. And Mom says the Republic doesn't exist out here.
Yeah, too far out in the outer rim.
And then Anakin starts talking about his pod racing, which again, very exciting for me because Ryan loves to talk about pod racing for whatever reason. And Anakin actually says he's the only human who can do pod racing. And Liam Neeson, whose character name I refuse to commit to memory for whatever reason.
Qui-Gon Jinn. It's a hard one. Qui-Gon.
I guess it's just because I can't think of an easy way to write it down because I know I will pronounce it wrong.
Yeah, but like
Qui-Gon. If I write it the way it's spelled, yeah. Well, I'm just going to keep calling him Liam, so that's what we're going to go with. So Liam is like, oh, you must be a Jedi because you probably have really good reflexes. And Anakin is like, you're a Jedi. And Liam is like, how do you know? And he's like, I saw your laser sword, which I appreciate him calling it a laser sword because that sounds like something I would call it. And Liam says something really cool. He's like, well, maybe I killed a Jedi and stole it.
Oh, I loved that.
Anakin is like, no, you didn't. And Liam was like, how do you know? And he's like, nobody can kill a Jedi.
Aww.
And then Liam says, I wish that were so. And then this next part made me so sad. This is good acting from this kid.
There's a lot of sadness in this section.
Definitely a sad section. But yeah, Anakin says that he dreamt that he was a Jedi and he came back and he freed all the slaves in Tatooine. And then Anakin asks if Liam is here to free them. And Liam is like, no, I'm afraid not. And Anakin, the hopeful little boy that he is like, I think you have. Why else would you be here? And that made me really sad.
He's such a good kid. He's so good. How it all turns bad.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like struggling to reconcile in my brain that he is going to become Darth Vader.
Maybe Vader someday later, now he's just a small fry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So then Liam is like, I can tell I can't, BS you, so I'm just going to tell you what we're doing. We are on a mission to Coruscant. And Anakin is like, well, then why are you here? We're like way out of the way. And Padme is like, the ship is damaged. And then Anakin is like, oh, I can fix it. I can fix anything.
Oh, I bet you can, young child. He like laughs at him when he says that.
I think that he can, though. I mean, obviously, this kid is very proficient.
Mm-hmm. I believe he could too. But yeah, they need the part.
So they're trying to figure out how to get the part. Padme is like, well, these junk dealers must have a weakness. And Mommy Skywalker is like, oh, it's gambling. They all have a weakness for gambling.
Yeah.
And Anakin is like, I know how we can get the money. There's a pod race tomorrow, and you can use my pod racer. And at this point, I wasn't 100% sure, but later what it is basically that Liam Neeson is going to be sponsoring Anakin, and Anakin is going to be the one racing. I thought for a second that they were going to have Liam race.
Can you imagine?
And I was like, uh-oh. Does he know what he's doing?
Definitely not.
So Mom is arguing, and she's saying it's super dangerous, and also Watto's going to be really mad. By the way, I have to tell you, after the last podcast episode that we filmed, okay, let me set the scene.
Going.
This is just a quick aside.
Kelli called me.
I called her because I was freaking out, okay? So my partner Ryan claims that he has never seen any Star Wars movies. This also happened with Lord of the Rings. If you listen to season 1, by the way, is he claimed that he never saw any of these movies, and then he goes around quoting them. And I was just talking to him about how I've discovered now what pod racing is, because he always talks about pod racing, even though he claims he's never seen these movies. And he was like, oh, did you meet Watto? And I was like, how could you possibly remember a character's name without having seen the movie? I know you've seen these movies. I think that he is a secret huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah, he definitely is.
I mean, Watto, I didn't even remember Watto's name. I was just calling him like CD Bug Guy.
You were calling him like Bug Man.
CD Bug Alien Man.
Yeah, I think that we need some answers from Ryan because he is a liar.
He really is,
He's going to the dark side.
I think he is on the dark side. He knows a little bit too much. Maybe he has Jedi mind powers. I don't know.
Maybe he's a Jedi.
Maybe he is a Jedi, actually. I don't know. I'll have to interrogate him later. But anyway, back to the story.
Yes.
So Mom is arguing that it's too dangerous for him to go to this pod race and that Watto is going to be mad. And then Anakin is just saying, I'm good at it. And then if we win, we can also pay for the parts for their ship. And then Anakin says something that I thought was kind of awesome, is he's like, you're the one who's always saying that the worst part about people, I didn't write this down exactly, but the gist of it was that nobody ever helps each other.
Yeah.
And Mom is feeling guilty.
He was like, come on, Mom, you say this all the time. Yeah, and she immediately changes her mind and she's like, okay.
Yeah, she's like,
we can help.
He can help. And she actually even says like, he was meant to help you or something like that. Mom is a very spiritual person.
She definitely is. Yeah, she believes in the Jedi.
So then they go back to the shop where Watto is, and Padme is not 100% on board with this plan because she's like, you literally just met this little kid. How is he going to help us? And she says the queen won't approve. And Liam is like, well, the queen doesn't have to know. And then he walks away and Padme is like, well, I don't approve. And I'm thinking, because you're the queen, I already know it.
Throughout this entire section too, Qui-Gon, I love him, but he talks down to Padme quite a bit.
And he keeps on saying something about like, relax, your queen's not going to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, and everything she says makes me think that she's the queen.
Official prediction continues.
I'm just throwing that out there. Official prediction. So then he's going to Watto, and Watto's like, oh, so you want to sponsor him for the race? And he's like, well, with what money? And then Liam is like, oh, I'm going to bet my ship. And then he's like, oh, well, what is he going to race in? And then Liam says that he won a pod in, I think, a card game.
Yeah, something like that.
And I love that Watto's like, well, I hope you didn't kill anyone I know.
A lot of scum on Tatooine.
So then Watto's trying to negotiate with him on the winnings, and he's like, I want 50%. And they go back and forth for a little bit, but then Liam's like, you can keep the winnings. I just want the parts for my ship. And if I lose, you can keep the ship. So I'm like, is Watto a bookie, or is he just actively betting against him?
He's just actively betting against him. He just bets. He's a bettor. He's a gambler. He'd love it here in Vegas.
Should we invite him over?
Yeah, let's go gambling with Watto.
Ryan will love him because apparently they already know each other.
I don't know if Watto knows Ryan, but Ryan certainly knows Watto.
I don't know if Watto's going to survive the movie, though, so we'll find out. I'm suspicious of everyone. So anyway, back to the ship. Obi is a little concerned about this plan, which honestly, kind of same, but I know because it's the movie that it's going to happen.
It's going to be fine.
But in any other situation, I would be like, this is a terrible idea. This little boy, I'm terrible with guessing kids' ages. Should we play a quick game?
Dude, I am too. Like, in my mind, he's 4, but like, I know he's not. Like, he's probably like 10, right?
My guess would be 10, but I'm not good at guessing kids' ages. But I think that would be a funny game.
How old do you think that Padme is?
I think she's old. And you know what? The fact that there's going to be a romance between her and Anakin, presumably, that's what I think. I think that we kind of said that maybe in the last episode, like the movie episode, not
you predicted
podcast
this,
episode.
yeah.
I think I did say that there was going to be a little romance because of that meme I saw. But like, I would guess that she's maybe 17, but 17-year-olds tend to play like 14-year-olds on TV. So maybe she's like 14, he's like 10.
Yeah, I like to put her at 14 and him at 10, I would say. But like, yeah, I don't know kids' ages either.
She's just so much taller than him.
Yeah.
So anyway, Liam is like, oh, there's something about this boy. And then he ends the comm and Mom's walking in and they have a nice little conversation. Liam is like, you should be really proud of your son. He gives without wanting a reward. And she's like, yeah, he doesn't know anything about greed. And Liam is like, he has special powers, doesn't he? And the mom hesitates, but she's like, yeah. And he's like, he's got Jedi power. And if he lived in the Republic, they would have known it. Mm-hmm. And Mom is saying that he deserves a better life than the life of a slave. And this part I thought was very weird. So maybe you can shed some light on it. Because Liam is like, who's the father? And Mom says there is no father. And then she goes on to say, you know, the fierce independent woman thing, which I was like, I'm on board with this. But then she says something I was like, wait, what? Because she was like, I birthed him, I raised him, I took care of him. And I was like, all right, heck yeah, you know, you're the single mom. We love that.
At this point, you thought she was saying he doesn't have a father because I raised him.
Yeah, because I took care of him. But then she's like, I don't know what happened. And I'm like, wait, what? Oh.
Well, I feel like I want to put a pin in this conversation to the end of the episode, unless you don't mind skipping around, because he does talk more about this later. But at this point, yeah, you can assume that there was just conception with no father.
Here's my assumption. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I learned in today's episode that Sith is an evil Jedi, I think. And I think that a Sith must have used his mind control powers to coerce her. And she doesn't remember it.
Think?
That's what I think. That's the vibe that I'm getting, and I don't like it, but that's the vibe.
I'll put a pin in it because there's still so much we haven't talked about. We haven't talked about the midichlorians yet, and that kind of ties into all this.
You mean the mitochondria, the power of the cell?
Yeah. That tells who's a Jedi and who's not.
So then Mom asks if Liam can help him, and Liam is like, I don't know. I actually did not come here to free slaves. And then we had a kid scene that I literally fully ignored.
Oh, really? See, his little friend, I think, is so cute, but I can't remember his name.
The little alien guy?
Oh, he's like a Greedo race. Remember the guy who Han Solo killed in episode 4? He's like a Greedo. No, not him. The other little kid, Qui-Gon says his name at some point, but I cannot remember. But nothing really happens. They're just like, man, look at your little pod racer, Annie. I bet it's never going to run because it's never run before. And he's like, it'll run.
Wait, was it the kid who was later watching the race?
Yeah, that kid.
Yeah, there were a few other cynical kids, but this kid was like on board with it.
Hyped. Yeah. But that's essentially what happens in that little kid scene.
Yeah, just like a little kid scene that I ignored. And then there was actually a second scene that I fully ignored, which was Jar Jar Binks' comedic relief, like getting numbed by the thing.
Yeah, I literally just wrote Jar Jar comedic relief.
That is what I wrote. Are
twins. We have Jedi mind power.
Wow, you sent that to me with your mind. And then basically the only thing of importance that happens in the next 2 minutes is that Anakin tries out the pod. It works. Yay.
Wow. That's it.
So then we cut to nighttime and Liam is taking care of a cut that Anakin has on his arm. Didn't explain how he got it, but he's got a little cut.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
Drives the plot along. That's all it is.
Yeah. And Anakin is just blown away by the night sky and the thought of all the planets out there, which same 100%. Mm-hmm. And he's like, do you think anyone's been to all of them? And Liam is like, probably not. And Anakin is like, I want to be the first one to see all the planets, which I thought was cute. Cutie. And then I guess Liam takes his blood, and that's the whole point of him having the cut, which I feel like they could have just done him falling and then Liam surreptitiously like wiping his blood or something.
This
is weird.
Yeah.
So he's like, what are you going to do with that? And Liam is like, I'm going to check it for infection. But he doesn't check it for infection. He sends it to Obi and tells him to scan it.
For midichlorians.
Yes, for the mitochondria count. He wants to see how many powerhouses are in the cell.
And it's even more than Master Yoda. 20,000 midichlorians.
Yes, and higher than any known Jedi, actually.
So I'm being a little facetious at the moment talking about the midichlorians. I believe you are as well, but I'm being facetious from a Star Wars fan point of view. The midichlorians are one of the things in the universe that people absolutely hate because they don't like the fact that you can know who's a Jedi based on like what's in their blood. They're like, where did this come from? Like, it shouldn't be that. It should be a feeling. You know?
No, I disagree. I like the idea of anybody being able to become a Jedi for training purposes, but I am also like very into the idea of like genetic mutation causing powers. I think that's always like a very cool plot. And I think that having that be like, oh, you know, you can tell just by this genetic mutation who's going to be super powerful. I just think that's kind of cool.
I like that to an extent. Like, I'm a huge X-Men fan, and that's sort of like prevalent.
Never seen
there. I know you've never seen that either, but that's like pretty prevalent like in that universe. For Star Wars, I always love when they say things like the Force is strong with you or I can feel the Force. Like, I feel like it's supposed to be a feeling. It's not supposed to be science.
It's supposed to be magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't
love the midichlorians, but since we are at the midichlorian section, I will skip ahead a little bit to the very end of the section that we watched where they're in the Jedi Council and Qui-Gon is talking to the other Jedi about Anakin, and he says, like, he thinks the midichlorian conceived him. So that kind of brings us back to the immaculate conception that we're getting with his mom and not having any sort of partner to conceive this child. Qui-Gon is under the impression that the midichlorians conceived him, and that's sort of the last we hear about that. Like, there is no father, it really was immaculate conception, and it was by the influence of the midichlorians, and I'm like, okay, that's stupid.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say that that's wrong and that he's just really sad about what happened to Anakin's mom, and so he is just making up this story to ease her pain about what happened to her.
So this is your fan fiction?
Yeah.
Okay. I like
Coming
it.
soon.
I like it better. I mean, no, I don't like trauma having happened to the mother, but I do think it makes way more sense than like I kind of wish she was like, oh, a hot stranger passed through town and then I got pregnant.
I don't know how I feel about that. But I mean, I think that especially knowing Anakin's future, I think that there's definitely something a little bit more dark and sinister at play here. So I like the idea that, you know, it started off because I love when characters are almost like born to be evil as well. I think that's evil. Yeah, I think that's very cool. And especially because they always say, you know, nothing is coincidence. This is all happening for a reason. The Force is pushing us in this direction. I think it would make more sense for Darth to be destined to be evil. And that makes it even cooler that he, in his very last moments of living, redeemed himself because he was always destined to be evil and he actually shunned his destiny. So I will be writing that fan fiction. You can find it on Wattpad or wherever you find your fan fiction.
Is that where fan fiction is?
I don't know. I've actually never in my life read fan fiction. Have you?
I can't say I've read true fan fiction, but I used to be a part of like writing forums where it was kind of like we would write fan fiction.
Little role play writing fan fiction.
Yeah,
stuff.
I do that sometimes. Not so much anymore, but as a teenager I did. We've talked about this before.
Oh, we have. Okay.
It's like my deep dark secret. I would never tell anybody about it.
And yet here you are on a podcast telling the whole world.
Telling everybody. The whole world.
Yeah, this is going to live forever.
I know. Well, now y'all know. I used to do kind of some role play fan fiction.
I'm going to be honest. I think we all have.
If you haven't, you're lying.
Yeah, if you haven't, you're a liar.
You're
not in our generation. So anyway, back to the movie. We cut to a ship landing in Tatooine, and we see Darth Maul coming out, and like his whole background is all red and stuff, so it looks pretty cool and evil. And he looks through some very futuristic binoculars, and he sends out some droids into the city.
Love Darth Maul.
I think he's very cool so far. I do like him.
I'm obsessed with him.
You know what? That doesn't surprise me about you, actually. Then we cut to the next day, and we've got Watto chatting it up with Liam, and he is already like pretty much banking on the fact that Anakin is not going to win. So he's like, after the race, I want my ship ASAP. And Liam is like, you don't believe in Anakin? And Watto's like, it's not that I don't believe in him. It's just that Sebulba always wins, so I'm gonna bet on him.
Qui-Gon is so calm during this whole section of like, Anakin's totally gonna win. Like,
I think he just has way too much faith. I guess it's because of the mitochondria that he hides in. But he believes way too much. And I'm like, everything is going to go against his favor. So he's betting a lot on this happening.
He really is.
So the Force must be incredibly strong with this one. But I also wonder if the Force can... How do I phrase this? I guess my question is the Force a form of destiny? Like, was he destined to win no matter what tried to stop him?
I just feel like Qui-Gon believes that if he believes, then he can manifest this into existence.
Interesting. So Qui-Gon is like, actually, I'll take that bet. If you want to bet on Sebulba winning, I'll bet on him losing, and I will take Anakin and his mom. And Watto is like, no pod racing is worth 2 slaves. Like, absolutely not. Not gonna happen. And Liam is like, fine then, just the boy. And then this whole part, I was like, what is the whole point of this? This is so dumb. Because Watto pulls out a die, and it's got like red sides and blue sides. And he's like, you know what? Let's make it a bet. We'll toss the die and we'll see. If it's blue, you can have the boy. If it's red, you can have his mom. And then he tosses the die, and Liam uses the Force to make sure that it lands on blue. And then Watto gets super angry, and he's like, well, you're not going to win anyway, so it doesn't matter. I don't understand what the point of was, that whole scene.
To show some Jedi mind tricks, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess that was it. And then meanwhile, we have a funny little moment where R2-D2 is talking to C-3PO about his space travel, and C-3PO's like, I'm definitely never getting on a starship. You will not be finding me on one of those. I'm not going to space.
C-3PO. How little
And I was like, oh yeah, now I remember why I can relate to you so well. And then Anakin is talking to his little friend, who you're a fan of, whose name I did not get. And his friend is like, don't worry, you're definitely going to finish this time. And then Padme is like, wait, have you ever won a race? And Anakin's like, not exactly. And then she's like, and you've never finished a race? And he's like, don't worry about it. Like he said, I'm going to finish this time.
Padme is not a believer.
Yeah, and you know what? Neither was I.
No.
And really quick, we do see Darth Maul's droids flying through the little area. So we know that he is watching, or being reported back to at the very least. So now we get to the pod race, which took up a decent chunk of this section.
Oh, so long.
It was fun though to watch, but it was a little gratuitous.
I like the noises that the pods make too when they go by.
I was actually going to say the only thing I didn't like was the noises.
Was the noises? I love the noises.
But I did love the announcer guy. So he's got like 2 heads, and one of them
him.
Speaks in Huttese and the other one speaks in English. So funny.
Yeah, they were great.
We've got Sebulba, the fan favorite. We've got really disgusting animal fart that farts on Jar Jar Binks, and he's like, ugh, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, I shouldn't have called Anakin a farty little kid. I should have called that animal a farty
animal.
Yeah,
when you were talking about farty little animals, I was like, wait, that wasn't Anakin, was it? And then the animal turns around and is like,
oh, sorry.
My bad. And then Mom tells Anakin to be safe, and while she's talking to him, Sebulba sneakily comes in and breaks a piece of the pod racer, and then Jabba the Hutt pops in to start the race.
Jabba. Also, Qui-Gon has a really good line to Anakin before he starts. He says, feel, don't think, use your instincts. So he's basically telling him to tap into his Jedi mind power.
Yeah, he's got to use the Force to win, especially because he's got a lot riding on it.
Oh, and he says, may the Force be with you.
Oh, he does say, may the Force be with you. So then the race starts. Anakin's will not start because there's a little bit of trouble, and everyone's laughing at him. There's actually another guy whose pod won't work either.
Yeah, so it's normal.
Yeah. But then Anakin does get his to go, and pretty quickly, actually, he starts to catch up. So he is incredibly fast because he was down for a little while.
His pod racer is also significantly smaller than a lot of the other ones, and I wonder if that makes it more aerodynamic.
Absolutely, yeah. So a very long pod pod race ensues. I wrote the highlights, which is that Anakin's pod gets messed up at one point, but he's very cool under pressure and he manages to fix it while he's racing, which was cool. That's actually basically all that I wrote, except for he does get ahead at one point, and then the sabotage part of his ship actually breaks off, so then Sebulba gets back in front, and then stuff happens, and then Sebulba's ship breaks, and Anakin wins. Yay!
Yay! Yeah, that's all we need to know about pod racing.
I mean, that was pod racing, but nobody said the line that Ryan always says, so I'm like, there must be more pod racing at some point.
Well, we're not done with the movie yet.
Fair. So the pod race is over. Watto is not pleased, and Liam goes to him, and he's like, bring me my parts, and also I'll come by to pick up the boy. And Watto is like, you can't have Anakin because it was an unfair bet. You knew somehow that he was going to win. And Liam says some dumb stuff like, oh, anything you gamble, you will lose, which should be the motto of Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah. Tatooine is essentially Las Vegas. It is a desert.
Maybe that's why I like it so much.
Yeah, that's got to be it.
I don't actually know if our audience knows. We both live in Las Vegas.
Yeah, we both live in Las Vegas. At the beginning of this podcast, we didn't, but now we do.
Did not. Now we do. And then Liam is like, so should we take this up with the Hutts and maybe they can resolve our issue since it was a bet and, you know, you lost fair and square. And Watto was like, fine, take him. And I had a mini prediction at that moment that there was going to be some trouble with him taking him, but there was none, so I was wrong about that.
Yeah. And I don't know why, but in this moment, I like feel bad for Watto, but then at the same time, I'm like, why do I feel bad for him? He's not a good character.
He's not. And I didn't feel bad for him because I'm a virtuous person.
Wow. Well, I love Darth Maul, so clearly I'm not.
So then we have him talking to Obi, and he's got the parts and he's telling Obi to, you know, fix the ship. And I hated this moment because I love Obi and I feel like he was kind of acting like a jerk here because Liam is like, oh, I have to go back and pick something up. And Obi is like, tell me you're not going to be bringing back some useless life form or something like that.
He was referencing Jar Jar Binks when he said that too.
Oh, I thought he was talking about Anakin.
Well, he was referencing Jar Jar Binks because he says, like, are we going to pick up another useless life form? Because they just picked up Jar Jar and they're like, oh, not another one.
Oh, okay. I thought he was just like, I don't know. I thought he knew who Anakin was.
No, not it. Well, I mean, I guess he must know a little bit who he is because he tested his blood.
Except that Obi-Wan is a jerk, okay?
Because what's actually funny is in this moment, in this scene, the note that I wrote is, ooh, Ewan McGregor is looking hot in this scene. So I wasn't paying much attention to what he was saying because I was noticing how cute he was.
Well, Liam basically puts him in his place and he's like, well, this kid is the reason that we're able to leave anyway, so we're gonna just take him. So then Liam comes back to Anakin and his mom's house and he tells them that Anakin is free, and the mom at first is like, oh, will you take him? Obviously Anakin wants to go, and then Liam is like, it's not gonna be fun or easy, it's gonna suck. And then Anakin goes to his mom and he's like, can I go? And she's like, it's your choice. You are the only one who can choose, because she's very spiritual. And he's like, yes, I'm definitely going.
But then he realized that his mom can't come.
Yeah, and then he realizes that mom's not coming and he gets really sad. And Liam does say he tried to get her freed as well, but he just couldn't. And mom is like, this is your destiny. It's time for you to go. And the whole time I was thinking he left his home and kissed his mommy goodbye, singing "So I'm Gonna Be a Jedi."
Following Weird Al's song perfectly.
Seriously. So then he goes and packs up. He turns on C-3PO, and I thought at first he was bringing him and that C-3PO was going to be like, wait, I just said I never want to be on a starship. But no, he's just like, all right, bye. Sorry that I left you naked.
Yeah, sorry that I didn't finish you.
And then I wrote, guess he's not coming, LOL. So at some point he does have to make his way to getting onto Princess Leia's ship. So I don't think he lives on Tatooine, but I guess we'll see him again. So then Anakin leaves with Liam, but then he turns around, runs back to his mom, and sings "Soon I'm Gonna Be a Jedi." No, I'm just kidding.
The whole dance number happens.
Absolutely
great.
I didn't know it was a musical.
Yeah, it actually is a musical at this point.
So he runs back to his mom and he's like, I can't do it. And he's like, will I see you again? And mom's like, what do you feel in your heart? And he's like, I hope so, which to me means that in his heart, he does not think he's going to see her again.
Yeah, that's a good interpretation.
And then she's like, then we will see each other again. And he promises that he's going to come back and free her. And I'm like, she is definitely going to be dead the next time he comes back. 100% chance. That's my next prediction.
Third prediction. Is this an official prediction?
I'm going to say it's official, yes.
Wow, that's 3.
And then mom says, be brave and don't look back. Very powerful stuff.
This part made me a little sad.
So meanwhile, back to your fave, Darth Maul. One droid reports back to him and he gets on a little motorcycle cruiser thing and he flies off. And the music stays ominous as we cut to Liam and Anakin. They're running for the ship. Anakin is getting tired and he's like, wait, I'm getting tired. And then immediately we see Darth Maul in the distance coming in hot.
Oh, love this.
And Liam is like, drop down. And he does. And then Darth flies off of his cruiser and immediately pulls out his lightsaber. Very cool little lightsaber battle moment.
Wait, are you calling him Darth?
Yeah, Darth Maul.
It made me think of Darth Vader.
I called Darth Vader Darth too. Oh,
they're all
it's
Darth.
Confusing. Well,
Darth
should I just
Maul.
call him Maul?
Yeah.
Shopping mall?
Shopping mall.
So anyway, there's a battle and Liam tells Anakin to run to the ship and tell them to take off. And the ship does take off, but Obi's like, fly over there, fly low. And then Liam manages to jump onto the little platform thing as the ship is leaving and they manage to escape. And then here's where I thought was another interesting thing that I wanted to point out, because Obi is like, what was that? Not who was that? What was that? And Liam says, I don't know, but it was well trained in the Jedi arts. And I'm like, is Darth Maul not
a person?
An existing being? Like, is it a droid?
So my thought about Darth Maul is, you said, his face is painted. It obviously in real life that is paint or some sort of makeup. In the world of Star Wars, I think that's what he looks like.
No, I totally agree with you. I cannot imagine that this bad guy is waking up 2 hours early to put on his face makeup for the day.
No,
I think that's what he
so.
looks like too, but I was just describing it for our audience.
But I think that that's why they're calling him an it, because he's not a human. He's got to be something else, some other race,
We don't know his pronouns yet.
But I do like that they dehumanize him in that way.
Ooh, because I wasn't a huge fan.
Oh, really? Well, because he's a bad guy. I like that they did that.
I know, but I like humanizing bad guys because I like when they have complex depth to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well.
But anyway, we get a very important introduction. Anakin meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, who will future be his trainer. That was not really great English.
Who will future be his trainer?
That was some Yoda speak right there. So then they leave Tatooine, my favorite planet.
Bye, Tatooine. Maybe we'll see you again.
But back on Naboo, the aliens are talking with the guy that I kept on talking about in our last episode. Turns out he's the governor. So he's talking to them and he's just saying like, you should just give up. And that's all I wrote down for that section.
There was a little conversation between the droids saying that they were looking for underwater villages.
Oh, yes. I do remember that.
And that's the Gungan cities are the underwater villages.
So yeah, that all happens, and then we're back to the Jedi ship, and Padme, I thought she was sneaking over, but I guess there were other people in the room, so it wasn't really so sneaky, but she watches the hologram that we saw in our last section saying that the death toll is catastrophic and that she needs to come back, and she is nervous, again, leading me to believe that she is secretly the queen. And then she sees Anakin, he is looking very miserable, and he says he is cold, so she gives him a blanket.
Yeah, this is where I was like, same. I'm very cold as well.
We live in the desert, but it is just not warm enough for us.
Just not warm enough. Not yet. I need my 120, please.
But yeah, they're talking, and she's like, you're from a warm planet. A little too warm for me. Which I was like, not saying,
not me.
Can't relate. Give me the warmth. I just want to be a lizard just laying on a hot rock and just having the sun on me. Me Incredible.
Too.
So then Anakin is like, you seem sad. And Padme is like, the queen is worried for her people. And I'm like, she's talking in the third person about herself right now. And then Anakin gives her this little trinket that he carved himself. And he's so like, cute. It's to remember me by, and it's also going to give you good fortune. Which I was wondering, did he just invent it and be like, it'll give you good fortune, I promise? Or is it like a known symbol?
Good question.
Somebody can tell us.
I don't have an answer.
And she's like, well, thank you, but I don't actually need anything to remember you by because I'm going to remember you. And one day we will have babies together.
Oh, God. I'm glad she didn't say that.
So then they reach Coruscant, which we find out the entire planet is actually one giant city.
I knew you were going to love that.
I loved it because I was thinking, okay, so if that other planet, Naboo, was New Jersey sized, maybe this is like New York City sized.
Yeah. You're always just asking so many questions about the sizes of the planets.
I need to know the size of every planet they go on, and I want to know how many different climates there are, what the population is. Are they all human? Are they all one specific type of alien? I want to know everything. I need to know the lore of every single planet. It's not enough for me. They jump planets like you drive through cities.
Yeah, but they always end up on Tatooine.
They do, because Tatooine is the best. Although Luke would disagree with me.
Luke would, definitely.
And then we see Senator Palpatine, and he is waiting for them.
And he's with the Chancellor, too.
Yes, he's with the Supreme Chancellor. Supreme Chancellor Valorum is his name.
Yeah.
So we get introduced to him. He gets introduced to the Queen, and they said that they've been worried about her since communications have been down. So then they take her, I guess, to talk with the Senate.
Yeah.
And Liam stays back, and he's like, I need to speak with the Jedi Council immediately because the situation just got more complicated. And Anakin was actually going with the Queen and Jar Jar Binks and that whole crew, and he stops and turns around, and then Liam gestures for him to keep going, which I thought was weird.
He looks so nervous.
Yeah, why was he going with the Queen and not with the Jedi?
Because I think that Qui-Gon needs to be very gentle with the way that he brings up Anakin, because typically, you'll learn more about this, but the people who are training to be Jedis are typically younger than Anakin when they start. So he's got to be careful with what he chooses to do and how he brings this up to the council.
Okay, fair. So then Jar Jar, Anakin, the Queen, all of her crew and her handmaidens go fly to a building to talk to, I wrote down, some guy. Who was that?
That was Palpatine.
Oh, okay. I can't tell any of these people apart.
I know. He's essentially like Queen Amidala's advisor, she looks up to him a lot for sure.
And by the way, she does have another fashionable new outfit on.
She's always looking amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely fly. Yeah. So I thought he was being a little shady here, to be honest. I wasn't sure because he was saying the Senate isn't going to go for this. The Senate isn't on board. That's why I wasn't sure if it was a senator, because isn't he a part of the Senate?
Yeah, he is. He's part of the Senate. And yeah, like what he's saying here, he's basically telling her that she should
give a vote of no confidence
for the chancellor and then accept the control of the Trade Federation. And
she's like,
he's just trying to give up. And he's like, she's like, absolutely not.
I just think there's something shady going on there. I feel like it's like political shadiness and I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely shady. And I think that Palpatine wants to play the politics game a little bit, whereas she's just concerned about her people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's definitely playing a game, like a power play game. And I wouldn't be surprised if his play was to try to get himself to be the Supreme Chancellor because it seems like that's what he was kind of aiming at, because he was like, we need a stronger Supreme. Could it be me?
Could it be me? Oh.
So then, meanwhile, we see Liam and Obi, and they are talking to the Jedi Council. And we have got some important people on this council.
We do. Samuel L. Jackson is on this.
Samuel L. Jackson. And he has had it with these snakes.
That's his name in the movie. No, I'm just kidding.
We also have an even more important celebrity, Yoda.
Yes.
So they're talking and they're saying that they were attacked, and they think that the attack was a Sith Lord. And somebody, I didn't write down who, but it was probably Samuel L. Jackson, said that the Sith are extinct. Now, I have to say, I've heard the term Sith before. I thought that Sith was someone's name.
Nope. Sith would essentially, I've mentioned this before and I haven't wanted to say it until it came up in this moment, that the people on the dark side of the Force are not Jedi. They may be trained in the Jedi arts the way that Darth Maul is, but they're not called Jedi, they're called Sith.
Okay. Very cool. I like that name. And they do say, regardless of who it was, they promise they're going to find out the identity of the attacker. And then they kind of dismiss Obi and Liam, and Yoda is like, is there anything else? Like, you seem like you have something else you want to say. And then Liam tells them about Anakin, and it turns out that there is a prophecy of someone who's going to bring balance to the Force. And Samuel L. Jackson is being very not on board with it. I feel like he seems like he doesn't believe it or agree with it, which is weird because, I don't know, I feel like the Jedi are supposed to be very like spiritual people. Yeah. So Liam asks if he can be tested, and Samuel L. Jackson is like, ugh, fine. We'll test him. And that is where we finish this section.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, just based on how he was acting, like he really didn't want to find out more about this boy. I was like, is Samuel L. Jackson the Sith Lord who maybe did something evil on Tatooine?
Ooh. I mean, I think it's a lot of it too is with Mace is just like seeing is believing. And as the Jedi, it's sort of like their duty to find the next generation of Jedi and to find who is strong with the Force, who has the most midichlorians in their blood. And just from him, you know, he never says any of this, but my interpretation is that if the prophecy was to come true and the person who is going to bring balance to the Force was there and existed, why didn't they find him?
But I mean, he's still very young. Yeah, he's very young. He was on another planet.
Yeah, he's still a small fry.
Stop it. And I feel like they also kept on saying, you know, nothing is coincidence. We found this kid on purpose. So clearly something is at play here. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts, and I also have none whatsoever.
I mean, I like your thoughts so far. I think you've got good thoughts.
Yeah?
I think you're thinking a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, we will be finishing the movie in next week's episode, right?
Yeah. Ooh, do you have a favorite character yet? I feel like it's hard to decide because, I mean, you know that Anakin gets played by a different actor, so it's hard to pick a favorite. But do you have a favorite?
Okay, I'll tell you my thoughts on the people that I like the most. Even though he's annoying, I do think that Jar Jar Binks is pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
I will not give him favorite status. Liam Neeson's character, I just like Liam Neeson's voice, so he is an automatic favorite for me.
I love him.
I want him to read bedtime stories to me. Is
Ooh,
there
yeah.
a way that we can do that? Liam Neeson, are you listening to this podcast?
You know, fun fact, I was supposed to almost be in a short film with Liam Neeson's son, but then I got recast. So
Oh,
I
wow.
almost had an in for you, but it didn't end up happening, unfortunately.
Well, if you ever meet him, can you let him know that I would really just love for him to read Goodnight Moon to me?
Boop, boop, boop. Ring, ring, ring. Hey, Liam, what's up? Yeah. No, I'm just here with my friend right now. I just called him. Yeah, I'm on the phone with him. Can you quiet? I'm on the phone with Liam Neeson.
I'm sorry.
Just kidding.
Tell him I said hi.
He hung up on me.
It was very realistic ringing sounds.
He's like, how'd you get this number? And he hung
I
up.
have a very special set of skills. Well, yeah. So, I mean, for right now, I would say, even though I can't even remember his character's name, he's probably my favorite just because of his voice. But in terms of character and attitude, Anakin's awesome.
Yay.
He really is. I think he's such a cool kid. And I say that, I think that's a very weighted statement because I'm not a huge fan of kids.
Yeah. And we haven't in this film or in these two sections gotten a lot of Obi-Wan yet. It's very Obi light at the moment.
I don't love Obi-Wan yet, although his hair is very funny.
The little braid.
He's got the little like side braid, like he just went to the Bahamas and he like got one of the little braids. And then he also has a little mini ponytail in the back.
I have something to say about his hair, but I'm going to hold my thoughts on it just for now.
I will say this must be like a Jedi hair thing because I know that Anakin in the future will have it based on the one meme I've seen.
Okay, that was what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. But I also think Liam Neeson's hair is very cool.
Yeah.
He's got luscious locks. Is that a wig?
There's definitely more to say about the hair, but I just feel like there has to be more. You need more information
Context.
first before I can really tell you about the hair.
The length of your braid is how strong of a Jedi you are.
Wait, that is something. What is that? Oh, that's a Game of Thrones thing.
I know.
Yeah. With the
Dothraki.
The Dothraki. Yeah. If you lose a battle, you get your braid cut off, and
sometimes your head too.
Sometimes your head. Sometimes they cut too far, and they're like, "Oop, goodbye, head."
Anyway, we're digressing pretty hard, so we're gonna take this conversation offline. But we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week for the final installment of the Phantom Menace.
Yay! It's gonna be a fun time. Maybe
not.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to the It's All Geek to Me podcast, hosted by Leah and Kelly. Make sure to hit subscribe in your favorite podcast player and give us a rating. You can also follow us on Twitter at All Geek Podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday. See you next week.